Greetings, hello. This is the boxing profile for my number 60 boxer in my tournament ranking, Bill Lang. He was born July 6th, 1882. He stood a 6'1" and weighed 190 pounds. Bill Lang was from Australia, and he several times held the Australian Heavyweight Championship. Let's go through the profile here. Bill Lang debuted in 1905 in January at the age of 22. He ended in the year 1916 at the age of 34, totaling 416 rounds boxed in a legendary career. His fighting style, he'd be described as a crude, tough guy, a battler, able to go the distance. Competitive rounds boxed, I have it at 147 competitive rounds boxed. My score for him would be 6. My score for him would be 9. His chief nemesis was Tommy Burns. Lang had 2 fights with Burns, totaling 26 rounds, including one for the heavyweight championship when Tommy Burns was champion. His greatest achievement would be a 12-round knockout of Bob Fitzsimmons. Simulation, Lang was a sporadic performer. His best simulation wins include wins over Rube Ferns, Hank Griffin, fireman Jim Flynn, George Cole. These are all boxers rated ahead of him, but he was able to compete with most of these boxers and win any of these boxers through the 50s. He was pretty even with them. His biggest miss of his career, I would describe this as a third bout with Tommy Burns, which was to take place in the year 1911. But this was to take place after a boxing match with Sam Langford against Tommy Burns, but Tommy Burns injured himself playing lacrosse and injured his good knee. Even though his left knee was bad, he injured his right knee, which was the end of Tommy Burns' boxing career prematurely. And the third fight with Bill Lang never got to take place. Now, Bill Lang, birth year, 1882. And these are the boxers that came up around him. 1881, Mike Donovan. 1882, Larry Temple. 1883, Hugo Kelly. 1883, Sam Langford. 1883, Jack Blackburn. 1883, Colin Bell. 1883, Dixie Kidd. Now, almost all of these guys Bill Lang did not fight, so he did not compete very much with his contemporaries. The only fighter there that he did have a match with was Sam Langford, born 1 year after Bill Lang, and he was able to fight Sam Langford once. So most of the time he was fighting boxers born just briefly before him, or the new crop of boxers coming up just after, quite a bit after his birth date. So at this point, we're going to go through Bill Lang's boxing matches, his career victories for the competitive rounds boxed. And the first fight that takes place is with the legendary Jack Johnson. This took place in March of 1907. Bill Lang was 24 years of age, and he had a 9-round TKO loss to Jack Johnson. And this is the newspaper notes that I have for the fight here. These are the newspaper notes for Bill Lang's March 1907 fight with Jack Johnson. Bill Lang was very green at this point. He just debuted in 1905, so he really didn't have a whole lot of experience. He was very green, and he immediately jumped into the deep end with some of the greatest fighters, which is one of the main reasons why Bill Lang resides here in the top 60, because even though his winning percentage was not very high, his competition level was extremely high. He was a very high-level competition fighter. So his match with Jack Johnson here took place in Australia because it was Bill Lang's home where he was fighting out of before he ventured out of Australia. Unfortunately, this fight was fought in a very heavy rain. It was very bad conditions, and it made the stage ring very slippery and unable to get very good traction, which really handicapped, I would say, the inexperienced Bill Lang. Let's see, in the second round, Bill Lang went down for 5 seconds. Round 7, Lang was down 3 times by Jack Johnson, and he got up and was able to survive the round. And round 9 here is when the towel was thrown in with a TKO in the 9th round. And at this point, Johnson was just pummeling Bill Lang pretty good. And the newspaper reports here indicate that Bill Lang took enough punishment for half a dozen people during this fight. And those are the newspaper notes that I have for the Jack Johnson fight. He would never fight Jack Johnson again, but he was going to fight most of Jack Johnson's peers here, as you will soon find out here. Okay, Bill Lang's next competitive bout would be in 1908 in September. This was for the heavyweight championship of the world when Tommy Burns held the heavyweight title. This would result in a 6-round loss KO. At this point, Bill Lang was still pretty green fighter. I think he had built his record up to 16-4-1. He was just barely 20 bouts into his career, and he was fighting the slightly older Tommy, but more experienced Tommy Burns. And these are the fight notes that I have for the fight from the newspaper accounts. Round 1, the honors were about even. Round 2, Lang knocked Burns off his feet with a heavy swing and nearly knocked him down again at the end of round 2. So at this point, that was pretty huge because Tommy Burns was the defending world champion, and Bill Lang knocked him off his feet. Round 3, the honors were about even. Round 4, Burns floors Lang for 8 seconds. Burns dashed in to finish the job, but Lang managed to keep going until the gong sounded. Round 5, this is where I have I'm going to read the full newspaper clip of here because this is a very historic round here. I'm just going to read verbatim what the newspaper report has in it because it's an extremely exciting round and certainly one of the great rounds in boxing pugilism history. Okay, round 5. Again employing his left well, the American resolved to make a quick ending and sailed in with vigor. He opened up Lang's arms until, receiving a straight left on the chin, the Victorian went down for 7 seconds. Up again. He took another left on the chin, followed by a right cross on the jaw, which served and sent him down for 9 seconds in the round. Lang was very weak as he rose, but he continued to stick out his left, which kept the champion off. From a clinch, Lang caught Burns with the left armor as the latter was turning, and the American was, for the second time, laid low on the boards. They're describing Tommy Burns being knocked down. He remained there for a couple of seconds. Upon rising again, he got Lang hard on the jaw and sent him down again for the third time in the round. The gong sounded just as 3 had been called by the 10-second checks by the referee. So as a recap for that round, there was a total of 4 knockdowns in the 5th round. Lang went down once for 7 seconds, I think it was. Lang went down again for 9 seconds. Rose caught Tommy Burns out of a clinch, knocked Tommy Burns down for a few seconds. Tommy Burns got up and proceeded to knock Lang down again for the 3rd time of the round, which Lang was saved by the bell there in that round. Round 6, Lang was knocked down for 9 seconds. He managed to rise to his feet and back up again. Tommy Burns took his sweet time to measure him and laid him out with a right cross. Bill Lang laid where he was and then was quickly assisted to his corner by a cornerman, where he quickly recovered. And that was it for Bill Lang's championship aspiring hopes, as he lost by a KO in his first fight with Tommy Burns in September of 1908. Bill Lang would make up for it greatly, quite a bit, here in his very December of the next year, the following year, 1909, as Bill Lang fights Bob Fitzsimmons and gets a 12-round win via TKO. At this point, Bill Lang's age was 27 years old, and I think Bob Fitzsimmons was age 45, I think. And these are my notes that I have from it. December 1909. Fitz went down, and he got up only to be sprawled out for several minutes. Spread eagle on the mat as Lang completely knocked Bob Fitzsimmons out in the 12th round. This is where the newspapers describe Bob Fitzsimmons as old, and had he been younger, he would have disposed of Lang easily. Quite a few days later from this match, there's a report in the newspaper that says the heat of where the fight took place greatly affected Fitzsimmons and drained his stamina from him, as Fitzsimmons claimed he was feeling much better in training and sparring than he did on the actual day of the match, because of the heat was affecting him so dramatically. So this may have contributed to Bob Fitzsimmons' rather poor showing, but nonetheless, it was a huge win for Bill Lang and gave him some huge name recognition on his record. And there is some brief footage of this on YouTube, this fight with Bob Fitzsimmons, as Bill Lang completely clobbers Fitzsimmons, and you would think gave damage, as it was a remarkable knockout that just completely sank the helpless Fitzsimmons, who was completely out on his feet and unable to defend himself properly. Now, Bill Lang's next match of note here took place in April of 1910, and at this point he was 27 years old, and he was fighting Tommy Burns. Now, this is a very significant match in the fact that this was Burns' only match post the Jack Johnson fight. He was making his comeback, and he was fighting his old nemesis, Bill Lang. And this was a very tough, grueling 20-round loss to Tommy Burns. And the match went the full distance, 20 rounds, and a decision was rendered. And it was a very grueling back-and-forth match in which Burns' first match from Jack Johnson started to run out of steam and kind of had to coast the last few rounds to be able to make it to 20 rounds. And these are my newspaper notes here. In the 6th round, Lang was sent through the rope by a push by Tommy Burns. In the 9th round, Lang retired to his corner with what was suspected as a broken right hand. This was a very fast round. Now, this is significant because I'll explain later, I guess, here. Round 13th round, Burns tired, and indications the likelihood of his conditioning giving out altogether were a dramatic factor at this point in the fight in round 13 of a 20-round bout. The decision was received well from the crowd as the decision was rendered for Tommy Burns as the victory. He had taken quite a bit of the earlier rounds, even though he was running out of steam. I think he was far enough ahead on points that he was declared the winner. But the major thing of note here is that, as I stated, Bill Lang broke his hand in the 9th round, and he stated in newspaper articles that he had Lang perfectly set up, or had Burns perfectly set up multiple times to knock Burns out. But his hand hurt so dramatically that he just couldn't use it effectively, and this really is showing the heart of Bill Lang as you find out through these matches here. I mean, nothing really deterred him. Here he is with a broken hand and a completely swelled up thumb under his glove, and he's still getting out 20 rounds and not even deterred, not quitting, and not giving up, as he was just a complete gladiator in this respect. And I guess Tommy Burns got the victory against a very extremely handicapped one-armed fighter, and this is where they really needed a third match to try and settle the affairs. And there was a third match talked about just 1 year after this, and this took place in 1910 in April. And in April of 1911 was when it was talked about, except that Tommy Burns' knee was too bad for this fight to actually take place, and it never happened. It was one of Bill Lang's big misses in his career. These are some notes that I have from the fight a few days afterwards in the newspaper. Tommy Burns declares that he was not in proper condition for the fight, and this was the results of his poor showing. Lang says the fight should have been a draw and explains that in the 9th that he had the misfortune of breaking his hand just above the thumb, but even then he did not lose heart. His thumb was very painful, and the hand was rendered practically useless throughout the rest of the match. He was convinced the doctor should not have been in he was convinced that the decision should not have been in Burns' favor. And in the newspaper quotes here was a quote from Jack Johnson, who watched the match ringside with Tommy Burns and Bill Lang, the second one, when Jack Johnson was champion. Indeed, before leaving Australia, Johnson was very decided in his opinion that should ever Bill Lang and Tommy Burns meet in a return battle, honors would go the way of the Australian, Jack states, indicating that he thinks fully healthy, that Bill Lang would beat the fully in shape Tommy Burns in the third match. That was Jack Johnson's opinion of the match, and certainly that possibility very much existed, considering how close the fight was, considering how badly handicapped Bill Lang was with his broken hand in the match with Tommy Burns. Now let's see here. Bill Lang's next match of significance was it's September of the same year that he fought Tommy Burns of 1910. At this point, he is 28 years old, and this is against one of the up-and-coming white hopes of the time, and this fighter was Al Kaufman. Now, in this fight, it was only a 6-round match. Unfortunately, I don't know why the fight was so short, but Bill Lang again took an L here, as this was a match in which Al Kaufman was a full-fledged, legitimate heavyweight, where Lang was not a full-fledged heavyweight. He was a cruiserweight at best, so he was dramatically lower in size than Al Kaufman, who possessed a dramatically huge monster punch. These are the newspaper notes of the match. Round 1. It seems as if Bill Lang is suffering from stage fright, as this was Bill Lang's first match in the United States, that after he had come here from Australia. Round 2. Lang cut loose in this round and wins the round over Kaufman. Round 3. Lang. This is the round in which Lang draws first blood from Kaufman's mouth. Round 4. This is where Kaufman took the upper hand in the match and started with infighting, and he draws blood from Bill Lang's eye. Round 5. This is entirely Kaufman's round. And round 6, Kaufman's round also, where he was punishing Bill Lang at the end of the match. And after 6 rounds were completed, the decision was rendered, and Al Kaufman was declared the winner. And this very much helped Al Kaufman for his heavyweight title shot against Jack Johnson, and very much destroyed the championship chances at fighting a rematch with Jack Johnson. Bill Lang's next competitive rounds match happened a few months after the Al Kaufman fight, and this took place in February of 1911. Bill Lang was 28 years old here, and he fights Sam Langford. And the results are a 6-round loss via DQ, disqualification. This match is significant because Langford was to fight Al Kaufman, and for some reason or another pulled out. And then Bill Lang did fight Al Kaufman, and now here we are, the match where Lang fights Langford to decide who is the real competitor, second-rate competitor here after Al Kaufman at this point in time. These are the notes I have. This took place in February of 1911. Round 1, Langford did all the scoring, keeping the Australian on the run. Round 2, Lang went down and rose at the count of 9 as the bell sounded. Round 3, Lang went down again, but rose once again and kept on his feet until the gong sounded at the end of round 3. Round 4, Lang's footwork saved him from some punishment in some situations, as he managed to get himself out of trouble in this round. Round 5, Langford handed out punishment and floored the Australian twice. Although groggy, he managed to survive the round out of sheer will, as he hugged and clinched as the round ended, and survived round 5 with Sam Langford. Round 6, with his eyes sweltered shut and barely able to see, and a face crimson with gore in the corner, Langford sent out a right for his opponent's jaw. Lang ducked and Langford slipped to his knees in the corner. Before he could rise, Lang gave him an uppercut, and the referee instantly gave the verdict to Sam Langford and disqualified Bill Lang on the spot for hitting Langford with an uppercut as he was starting to rise. And this was something that would come back and haunt Bill Lang again, as he had a habit of hitting people when they were down and beginning to rise. And in this spot, it cost him the match, but he was absolutely no match whatsoever for Sam Langford, as Langford was just handing out a severe punishment to Bill Lang at this point. Now, Bill Lang's next match of consequence is in May of 1911. This is just a matter of a few months after the Sam Langford bout. And at this point, he's still 28 years old, and this is his first match with Jack Lester, the white fighter who was Jim Corbett's protege, trying to bring him up to the boxing ranks. And this, the first match with Lester, who was very green at the time. These are the notes. Round 3, Lester is dropped for the count of 9. And round 6, which leads up to his disqualification, Lester lands a tremendous swipe on Lang's elbow and breaks his hand. And he went down on a knee. This is where the referee disqualifies Jack Lester for going down on a knee without getting hit. And that's the reason for the disqualification in this match. The entire bout was pretty non-eventful. At the time of the 6th round, when the bout is awarded, Lang's eye is bleeding freely. This is the same eye that he continues to have problems with in multiple matches. And Sam Langford opened up the cut, and Jack Lester reopened it again here just a few months later. And from that point, the next match of consequence for Bill Lang would be in September of 1911, just a few seasons after the first match with Jack Lester. And at this point, Jack Lester was a very much improved boxer than meeting the first round. These are the notes on Bill Lang versus Jack Lester 2. This was a 20-round loss for Bill Lang. Several days before, Lang suffered an attack of influenza before the match happened, and Bill Lang credits this influenza attack for being considerably weak in this match with the rematch with Jack Lester. The beginning rounds were back and forth in action, as each fighter edge of openings in the rounds are relatively even. In round 7, Lester opens up an old cut once again on Bill Lang, and Lang's eye bleeds freely. Round 9, rather uneventful. Round 10, Lang clubs Lester on the jaw, and had it got full force, it would have ended the fight. And at the end of the round, both Langford's eyes were dramatically affected. Round 11. In this round, Bill Lang took severe punishment. Round 14, Langford bore in for a knockout, and bleeding severely, he tried to end the match all he could because he was in pretty tough shape at this point. But Lester managed to stick out the round. Round 16, Lester gave one of his best blows with a right on the jaw. And from that point on in the match until the end of round 20, Jack Lester has the best of the match as Bill Lang is completely affected by the eye, and which is bleeding freely through the match. And just as the previous match with Sam Langford, I'm sure he was covered in crimson gore, as they would describe it. After the fight, these are the remarks of Jack Lester about Bill Lang. Lang is one of the toughest men I ever fought. Lang commented, "It's my old trouble. My right hand pretty much failed me early in the fight. In the 5th round, I think I broke it. After that, every time I used it, it hurt me. I was not as strong as I should have been. I was suffering the last few days from influenza, and upon removing the bandages, Lang's thumb was very swollen, and it was quite obvious that an injury had occurred. But in this match, yet once again, Bill Lang, even despite hurting his hand, bleeding freely, and all the adversities going against him, manages to gut out the full distance of the round, in which he had done previously in his match with Tommy Burns, and he goes the full distance as a true gladiator that he was. Now in Bill Lang's next match of note takes place just the following month here in October of 1911 against Sam Mcvea. And this was a 2-round loss via KO. These are the newspaper notes of the match. Round 1, Mcvea attacked with a fever as Lang did his best to keep him off of him. Round 2, quick exchanges. Mcvea with a terrific right sends Lang down. Lang once again, as he usually does, arises at the count of 9 seconds. A left and a right dropped him again. Lang's up again, once again, for the second time in the round. Lang attacks him again, as Lang fell for the 3rd time, which ended the contest. Afterwards, Bill Lang's comments about fighting Sam Mcvea. Bill Lang says, "I met 3 of them, Johnson, Langford, and Mcvea. Mcvea is the stiffest of them all. I was in very good condition, but I am too dazed to talk anymore." That's his comments. He was still loopy from the terrific beating that Sam Mcvea laid out on him. So, for whatever it's worth, Bill Lang's opinion of the 3 fighters, Jack Johnson, Sam Langford, and Sam Mcvea, Bill Lang claims that the best of the 3 is Sam Mcvea. So Bill Lang's next match of consequence here happens when he's still 29 years old. This is the following year in 1911 in January. This is against Jim Barry, and this was a 20-round loss. Jim Barry is part of the new breed of the New White Hopes coming up, is where Bill Lang and Tommy Burns were boxing just prior to the beginning of the rise of these New White Hopes. And at this point, Bill Lang fights a couple of the up-and-coming risers of the New White Hopes. And these are the newspaper notes for the match with Jim Barry. Beaten practically over the whole distance and fighting with a closed left eye that swelled to the size of a hen's egg, Bill Lang looked the picture of misery when he had completed 20 rounds of boxing. Jim Barry gets the win here after 20 rounds, and this is kind of weird by reading the newspaper comments as they describe as no one able in Bill Lang's corner able to help him with his tremendous eye problem, his left eye, and they just completely ignore it, I guess, everyone around, the ring doctors, everyone, and it just swells to the size of a hen's egg, and it's just a huge and complete grotesque sight at this point. But yet, once again, Bill Lang manages to gut out the full distance of the fight and completes the 20 rounds against Jim Barry despite the severe handicap that he had with his eye. Now, Bill, at this point, Bill Lang is losing dramatic steam in his career, and he's about ready to be done. So that was in January of 1912. His next fight at Consequences in November of 1913, as Bill Lang took off some significant time to try and completely heal, which he took tremendous damage from in the Jim Barry bout, and to completely heal his hand, which he was having severe problems with as it was re-breaking frequently. And this is the newspaper notes of his November 13th match with Dave Smith. And at this point, he was 31 years old, and this resulted in a 20-round loss. The contest was one of the best heavyweight fights ever seen in Australia for many years, and it was a magnificent victory for science over strength. Round 6, Lang makes a big effort for a knockdown, but fails. Round 12, Lang drove a huge right, which landed full on Dave Smith's jaw, and his legs begin to sag. But Dave Smith manages to finish the round despite his decaying condition. Round 13. A left hook caused Smith to rock in his tracks. Lang loses steams and gets peppered. Smith was very fresh at the fight's end, as the 20-round decision was awarded for Dave Smith and greeted with cheers. Bill Lang's comments after the fight: I feel like I am a bit on the slow side. I say that Smith is a wonder. He boxed in a dazzling sort of way. If he had a little more weight on him, he would be a world beater. Lang was battered, weary, and discomforted and almost groggy when he said these remarks. So he gives Dave Smith quite a bit credit, as Smith is an up-and-coming middleweight. Now, Lang's last match of consequence happened the following spring in 1914 against the up-and-coming White Hope fighter Arthur Pelkey. Now, this is Bill Lang's swan song, the kind of the old school fighters versus the new breed of White Hopes. And in this match, the old school fighter Bill Lang got the upper hand. The results were a 20-round knockout. And these are the newspaper notes that I have for the match. This happened in April of 1914. Round 3, in a heavily fought contest back and forth, Lang goes down for a count of 8. Pelkey rushes him and sends him to the boards once again, but yet once again Bill Lang rises and manages to survive round 3. Round 4, Lang is more than dazed Pelkey with combinations at this point, as Pelkey manages to just barely survive the round. Round 6 was blazing with back and forth action as both fighters administered severe punishment to each other. Round 7, Pelkey determined to shake things up. Lang goes on the defense at this point. Round 8, Pelkey met Lang almost in his corner as he was waiting to resume action. Several uppercuts landed on Bill's jaw, and it's surprising how he weathered the storm, but he came back. Round 9, back and forth action in this round as both fighters got advantages. Round 10, a right to the jaw had Lang in brief trouble, but he manages to survive the round yet once again. Round 11, Lang surely had his man going. With a wild swing on his part, the Australian missed a golden opportunity as Pelkey was in severe trouble at this point in the match in the end of round 11. Round 12, Lang again forced the pace but missed the mark. Round 13, back and forth action. Round 14, even. Round 15. At this point, Pelkey is dead tired. Lang beat his man and had him groggy. Round 16. The American had the better of this round. Round 17. Lang forced his man, driving him all over the ring. Each time he causes the American to hang on until he recovers. Round 18. Lang forced the action, narrowly missed knocking out Pelkey. Round 19. Lang shot in a good right. Pelkey bent at the knees and fell in a heap. He managed to regain his feet at the count of 8, but again a right swing put him down and out. Pelkey was spread eagle on his back and out beyond any manner of a doubt. And that, my friends, was the end of Bill Lang's career. He ended a few years later in 1916, but that was his last fight of significant note. He does have a match with Tom Kennedy, but none of these matches were very significant at this point because he retired at the age of 34 years old, and even after the Pelkey match, he was just pretty much done as a boxer. But the great thing about Bill Lang is he would go on to be a boxing trainer, and he would train kids and youth, and be a great ambassador for the sport of boxing. And later on in his life, as he lived to be quite old, he wrote newspaper articles that were extremely fascinating, describing the fights and the fighters of old time, as he described it, and some very interesting articles about his career and the individuals that he ran across throughout the course of his career. And it must be noted here in this last match of consequence with Arthur Pelkey, it's a great show of diversity as the first person into the ring to greet Bill Lang on his victory over Pelkey was the great Sam Mcvea, who destroyed him when they met, and they developed a friendship after that. And Mcvea, who had multiple white friends, he was very best friends with George Carpentier, the French fighter, and he was also friends here with Bill Lang, as he was extremely popular with many of the white fighters. And after the match in which Bill Lang won this, Sam Mcvea was the first one into the ring to congratulate him, as they described him dashing into the ring quicker than a cat, is how they state it. And that's the boxing profile for Bill Lang. So I want you to remember, when any of you guys are having a tough day at work or whatever the case might be, and you need to just make it to the very end of the day, you need to Bill Lang it. That's what they should call it. And just survive the adversity that's in front of you, just like Bill Lang did many times by gutting out these rounds in a horrific shape, but yet Lang had no quit in him as he constantly gutted out the matches to go the distance and do a decision, and he was very unique in that sense.